matter where money could potentially go to be, how money could potentially be used.
The claims that the election was stolen were so successful, President Trump and his allies raised $250 million, nearly $100 million in the first week after the election. On November 9th, 2020, President Trump created a separate entity called the Save America PAC. Most of the money raised went to this newly created PAC, not to election-related litigation. The Select Committee discovered that the Save America PAC made millions of dollars of contributions to pro-Trump organizations, including $1 million to Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows' charitable foundation, $1 million to the America First Policy Institute, a conservative organization which employs several former Trump administration officials, $204,857 to the Trump Hotel Collection, and over $5 million to Event Strategies, Inc., the company that ran President Trump's January 6th rally on the Ellipse.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing.
The evidence developed by the Select Committee highlights how the Trump campaign aggressively pushed false election claims to fundraise, telling supporters it would be used to fight voter fraud that did not exist. The emails continued through January 6th, even as President Trump spoke on the Ellipse. 30 minutes after the last fundraising email was sent, the Capitol was breached.
Every American is entitled and encouraged to participate in our electoral process. Political fundraising is part of that. Small dollar donors use scarce disposable income to support candidates and causes of their choosing, to make their voices heard. And those donors deserve the truth about what those funds will be used for. Throughout the committee's investigation, we found evidence that the Trump campaign and its surrogates misled donors as to where their funds would go and what they would be used for. So not only was there the big lie, there was the big ripoff. Donors deserve to know where their funds are really going. They deserve better than what President Trump and his team did. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank all of our witnesses today. And I'd also like to, in particular, wish Mr. Stepien and his family all the best on the arrival of a new baby. Today's hearing, Mr. Chairman, was very narrowly focused. And in the coming days, you will see the committee move on to President Trump's broader planning for January 6th, including his plan to corrupt the Department of Justice and his detailed planning with lawyer John Eastman to pressure the vice president, state legislatures, state officials, and others to overturn the election. Let me leave you today with one clip to preview what you will see in one of our hearings to come. This is the testimony of White House lawyer Eric Hirschman. John Eastman called Mr. Hirschman the day after January 6th, and here is how that conversation went.
I said to him, "Are you out of your effing mind?" Right? I said, I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on: orderly transition.
That's former White House lawyer Eric Hirschman. We'll be live streaming all the January 6th hearings at democracynow.org. You can tune in on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern and then on Thursday at 1 p.m. Then we will bring you highlights on Thursday and Friday of those hearings on Democracy Now! On Monday, we'll be airing a Juneteenth special. We'll talk to Clint Smith on the origins of Juneteenth and his book, How the Word is Passed, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. And we'll also speak with MIT professor Craig Stephen Wilder, author of Ebony and Ivy, Race, Slavery, and the Troubled History of America's Universities. That does it for our show. To see transcripts, audio, and video podcasts, go to democracynow.org. Democracy Now! Is produced with Renee Feltz, Mike Burke, Dina Guster, Messiah Rhodes, Nermeen Sheikh, Martia Sena, Tammy Warren, Camille Baker, Tarina Nadura, Sam Alcoff, Maria Studio, John Hamilton, Ravi Karen, Honey Masood, Mary Kama, Juan Carlos Davila. Our executive director is Julie Crosby. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.
Friends, have you been trussed up with lust? What about the other 7 deadly sins? Are you cross-eyed by pride, knock-kneed by greed, in a frenzy with envy, in the custody of gluttony, harangured by anger? Does sloth make you froth? Well, give those sins a kick in their shins with KFAI. Yes, let KFAI be the virtue you defer to when those sins rush in. With KFAI, say bye-bye to vilify and hello to where community grows. KFAI. Acedia and vanity not included.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
The time now is 1 o'clock. You're listening to Fresh Air Community Radio, KFAI, 90.3 FM Minneapolis, on the web at kfai.org. It's where community grows. 93 degrees here at the corner of Cedar and Riverside. 93 degrees. 1 o'clock here. And being 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, it means it's time to tune in with Al McFarlane. It's Conversations with Al McFarlane. Mr. McFarlane, are you there?
I'm here. Hey, Mason, how you doing?
Hey, looking good, sounding good. I meant that for you, but me, myself, I'm doing all right, too.
Well, Brenda is here with us right now. We've got some guests on the way in, so we're looking forward to a good program. But boy, is it toasty outside, hot. I was out a few minutes ago, and man. But, we need it. Summer is here, and it's announcing itself, and that's a cool thing.
Yes, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So I will let you take it away.
Yeah, I'm so glad we have Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! Her show is always riveting, and I feel lucky to be following her program because of the massive audience she has. But I want to commend us, the station, and our community for being able to, over the years and years, host that important information platform. Critical information, critical analysis, well organized, well presented, and presenting a viewpoint that supports progressive values, human values, over interests that really serve our people and our notion of democracy.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And it's great that you follow her, and it's great that those people that are listening to that program have you to pick it up on and have those 2 hours of public affairs right in a row.
Awesome.
So, right.
Well, thank you. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Today is June 14th, and we're glad to be here with you and glad to have you along with us as well. I want to start by saying hi to my colleague and my writing partner, Brenda Lyle Gray, who joins the program every day from the hot state of New Mexico. Brenda, we're catching up with you right now. Minnesota is ablaze, not in fire, but just in thermometer heat at the moment.
Take the blaze and not the fire. That's
not the fire, right,
part.
but the heat. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I had sent you an email earlier, but Al, there was a comment, or it was an article yesterday that made me just almost lose my breakfast this morning.
Really?
Her name was Lauren Bogart. I think that's how you pronounce it. She's a Republican House rep for Colorado. She said she hoped Biden died.
Whoa.
And that his days would be few in number. And she was addressing a church congregation. And I said, if they are that bold, it goes back to a conversation in the show yesterday. How safe are we?
Yeah. if that's kind of the voice of the so-called leadership, and they see
Yeah.
themselves representing a portion, and in their mind, the majority of Americans, what is the vision that is guiding them? What do they see as the solution? And it sounds like the solution is what they are proposing, what she's proposing for our president, which is absolutely insane,
Yep.
inappropriate, any way you cut it. And
No
so
way
it's
she should be
atrocious.
in office.
Mhm.
Nothing.
Mhm.
I mean, it was just, I sent Dr. Irma an email and I said, is it me or is this is insane.
And so it comes on the heels of the news yesterday, I think it was, where they arrested 30 or so young white guys up in Idaho who had planned to disrupt and protest a GLBTQ
Yep.
Pride Day parade. But, there's something happening in the country that's ugly, or it's been happening all the time, but it's revealing itself in a way that it never has before, or we're being able to see it and document it and share our documentation in ways we haven't been before. There's been a wink, wink, nod, nod, where power has allowed and nurtured secretly this deviant behavior, this anti-human behavior, anti-social behavior, certainly anti-democratic behavior, but nurtured these feelings, and they are consistent with the notion of white privilege, of white people feeling privileged, that they have both the privilege and in their own mind some obligation, some duty to defend the fortress against the barbarians. And I guess all the rest of us in their mind constitute the barbarians, those for whom they have decided, or against whom they've decided to protect, whatever they perceive to be our country. But something's really
I don't
out of
get
kilter.
it. And probably the hearings, Al, are making them angry because they're looking very ugly. I mean, very vicious. That little meeting in the parking lot just kind of set it off. It was like, oh, no. They had been planning this and putting their little blueprint into action. And I just think that the way the committee is presenting this, it's hard to refute.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the outcome is going to be? I mean, some people who I've talked to say that, we've heard this all before. It's not new, but at the same time, it's refreshing to be reminded of how close we came to an effort to overturn our government, because it's easy to be lulled into that being a non-event, or to allow the narrative that says, oh, these were just some people picnicking, that they were really patriots. And that's the narrative that the Trumpites want to present and project, but it's false, it's wrong, and it's dangerous.
Well,
and
now it's showing itself with $250 million in funding, spent $5 million on the rally, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think the result will be, Al, if Merrick does something. He said they have 10 prosecutors and himself watching every hearing, and they will have copies of all of the transcripts at the end of all of it. So who knows?
Well,
but I know one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going back to Marvin Smith. We cannot be apathetic. Right. Not in Twin Cities, not any place in this country. And then they're forming their own schools now, 165 chapters, 70,000 members.
Talk about that. Tell me that story.
It's, I just sent the email to Dr. Irma. It's Missouri Mothers for Liberty is the name of the organization. They were founded in Florida, and they've been in existence, I think, for 10 years. And they have funding from all of the rich and famous in the Republican Party, 165 chapters in 33 states.
And their stated mission is?
They are former school board members, are current school board members, and they are going to be activists in elections and in school curriculum. And we're going to be quiet.
Yeah, and so their intent is to turn back the clock.
That's it.
They kind of want the days of Ozzie and Harriet, or Father Knows Best, or Leave It to Beaver. And that was when they had, at least in their imagination and across the airwaves, they controlled an idyllic situation where, wifey stayed home and cooked and baked and ironed the clothes, and where a guy went out, the suit and tie, or maybe he was a blue collar worker, but a worker who had the duty of, being the breadwinner in the home and raising kids that respected him and the American way of life as they saw it. And that way of life was something that they thought they offered to the world as a sign of progress and peace, but that totally disregarded or ignored the pain and the havoc, the genocide that culture had visited on the original inhabitants of North America and South America and the Caribbean, and that totally ignored the protracted trauma that their way of life visited on your people and my people, those of us who, in part, are descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. And there had been an unwillingness to, and there still is an unwillingness to address the consequence and the horrific nature of that part of the history of the world, and particularly the history of the United States. So
Western culture stain, the stain that remains and continues. I don't know what's going to happen with our children, but we have to figure out something. Our children have just been through more than a little bit. And Al, I went back and read the article. It was in one of the papers, and I forgot who wrote it, but it was on racial discrimination causing the depression and the suicides. And I just think of all of the layers of our kids. And then we talk to a millennium or get these emails from Sean Lewis, just an unbelievable, committed young man like the youth task force who wants change and loves his city. But it's ridiculous, and we've got to support them. And now COVID is coming back, and monkeypox is here, and no one can explain where the resources for schools anywhere. And then you've got this politician that says, I want the president to die. I want his days to be numbered. How dare you? And no one says anything. Oh, but they did this morning. It was like, get her out of office. That's not going to happen. Even though people are still sending money to the Republican Party, unless they go to these people and ask them why they donated, as far as the law is, they didn't do anything wrong. They couldn't tell the people where to send their money.
Mason, in studio, if you are able to, I'd love to have us give out a phone number, because maybe some of our listeners might want to join the conversation. It's an important one. I think there probably are views strong, and I'd love to hear from our listeners here on KFAI. So is that possible, Mason, that you could patch in a caller if a caller comes across? Let me bring you onto the stream.
Yeah,
there we go.
Oh, yeah, they couldn't hear me. Absolutely.
Okay.
The number is 612-341-0980. I believe the people in Radio Land could hear me there, but yes.
Okay, so if somebody comes in or calls in, let's bring them onto the conversation, because I'm just amazed at what's going on. What is your sense, Mason? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you'd have to say about this.
And well, you've covered a lot of topics there all on about the last.
I'm sorry.
minute, so
I was kind of taken by this, Mason. I just thought the audacity was just.
Yeah, no, speaking of Lauren Boebert, I think is how you say her name. Yeah, I don't know where she gets off. Honestly, I mean, I know what she's doing. It's all very performative, and I feel like there's something going on where she's being platformed just to raise this kind of outrage. But it enrages me.
And how do you pronounce her name?
I think it's Boebert, Bobert.
Okay.
I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
But thankfully,
I mean, I told Al I lost my breakfast almost. I just couldn't believe it.
And I think that's sort of calculated in a way. I do feel like a lot of the linchpin of the Republican Party right now is to generate that sort of outrage and to throw the most outrageous things against the wall, to pull those fringes out that are going to be receptive to that sort of thing.
So Barr kind of rocked the boat.
Yeah, exactly.
To the other side.
Right. Yeah. With so many people that have been so disengaged for this many years, I guess they could see in the last 6 years, the thing that really brought them out is the really bottom of the barrel of the stuff, the really hateful stuff, the really, outrageous reality television kind of stuff.
Have you been watching or taped any of the hearings?
I've been catching the wrap-ups of those things. That sort of thing too feels like that same sort of sensationalism that where even people are calling it must-see TV or something. If you look back, a year and a half ago, we almost the linchpins of our democracy almost fell, and now we're treating those as tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern to see the real story. And it's all very important stuff, but it's being treated in such a way, in such a disconnected way.
That's it.
Yeah.
There is Al says it's something going on within the environment and the atmosphere, but it is the disconnect.
Yeah.
And not only with them, but with us too.
Right.
So the question for me, Mason and Brenda, in our, our progressive communities, how do you see us responding? What do you see in terms of what's happening in neighborhoods in our communities here in Minneapolis and St. Paul? And Brenda, in your neighborhood level, precinct level in New Mexico, what do you think? Are people motivated to get out and act? Are people discovering the tug of lethargy and the weight of being overwhelmed by as you said, Mason, the theatricality of so much of the presentation that we're seeing right now? What do you think, Mason?
I'm thankful to those who are motivated. I feel the lethargy that you're talking about there, that complete overwhelmingness. And, especially as somebody that's paid attention to social media and has to, take breaks for several days at a time, because just the amount of news, the amount of unfiltered news and unchecked news and unchecked information that comes through, it can be very hard to, it numbs you. It numbs you, and that's even more dangerous. That's almost more dangerous than the terrible things that are happening, is to become numb to those things.
Well, Mason, thanks for weighing in. If somebody calls in, just bring them on and we'll just bring them into the conversation. Brenda, Absolutely. This is a good chance for you and me to walk down memory lane as well. For people that don't know, our listeners that don't know, and the viewers that don't know, Brenda, Lyle Gray, and I met each other when we were 5 years old. We're both 74, 75 now. It's been a long, long time. So we were in kindergarten together in Kansas City, Missouri, and in a neighborhood that Brenda has written about and writes about, that we grew up in. We went to D.A. Holmes Elementary School, but the first year when we were starting school, the school got burned because
Just wrote
whites
about it.
did not want to integrate. That was at the early stages of integration, and the neighborhood we lived in on the black side of the neighborhood was in transition, and white flight was beginning. We were part of a middle class movement, a working class movement of Black people. And when our numbers were sufficient that we needed more space and access to the neighborhood school, rather than allow an integrated experience, the whites in the community burned the school. Therefore, our first year, our kindergarten year, Brenda and I had to walk about 10, 12 blocks to school, not a big deal, but to a place called Booker T. Washington School, which was the Black school. But that school even didn't have the space for us because they were planning for their natural, enrollment. And the infusion of new students was something they weren't prepared for. As a consequence, Brenda and I spent our kindergarten year sitting on the floor in a dance hall. There was a juke joint in the neighborhood that they converted by day to a classroom for kindergartners. And I remember all of us sitting around cross-legged on the floor listening to our teachers. Brenda always refers to Fran Webster in particular as one of our teachers. But Brenda, talk about that, your recollection of us. And I want to have that conversation leading into how we see the world today. I think it's important for people that are 70, 74, 75 to talk about what it was like when we were 4 and 5 and how the world has changed and what we believe we have done and what we believe we still must do to move ourselves and our families, our neighborhoods towards the promise that we envisioned as children. What do you think, Brenda?
That's, Al always does that. He has about 10 questions. Do you go along with that, my friend? It's kind of hard to, you want to go with your guess?
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of hard to look at our neighborhood. Maybe I'm being idealistic, but it was mixed. My father worked at the post office. We had doctors, 2 brothers, the Petersons. We had politicians, educators. We just had them all. And they took care of us. And we also had the church, and it was real. I'm struggling with that. I was in the grocery store Sunday morning at 7:00, and this one clerk told me, she said, "You're here awfully early." And I said, "I used to be in church at 8:00, but it was the Trump church." And I had, there were 10 Blacks in this church, and all of us, we had to go. We didn't know who to trust. But she mentioned to me, now that doesn't say God is out of my life. He is definitely sitting right there on my shoulder, along with my ancestors and my mom and dad. Mm-hmm. So, but she said, my children don't even know anything about religion, and they're 11 and 12 years old. And I said, that's where we are. And then I see this email, I want your president to die. I want his numbers to be few. Gosh. So it's such a contrast of the love and the thirst of learning, of the respect for seniors. I have gone through 3 years of disrespect with people living above me who have no respect whatsoever of someone who's 75 years old and needs to sleep. But it's our foundation that we had growing up. And our revolutionary partner, Bernard, and the Black Panthers. That's where I started writing, was the Black Panther newsletter. And I had to use a pseudonym. I need to find some of my copies. Those were interesting. Al tells everyone I was a revolutionary at 5 years old, because there was one day I wouldn't sit on the floor. And they had to call my father at the post office and have him come get me, because I just wasn't going to sit on the floor in that particular day. I had gotten a new snowsuit. So said, nope, not sitting here. Mm-hmm. But we had, so many of us just turned out to be committed, good parents, good citizens, spiritually. We knew we were tough. They didn't have to tell us. We had kids in our class going to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, William and Mary. We're talking 1964, 65. And there wasn't a whole lot of racial fear or whatever. Even if the campuses were predominantly white, we were okay. We're not okay right now.
I got a couple of people joining us here. Our friend Colonel David Rabb, I think, is on the phone.
Good.
Mason, can you patch him in?
I believe I have Colonel Rabb. Are you there?
I am.
Perfect.
Colonel Rabb said you got to go. What is it, Colonel Rabb? You got to go through it. It was a quote that I
got to go through it to get through it.
That's it. You got to go through it to get through it. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah, you get it.
Yep.
We're going through a lot, aren't we?
We are.
We can't stop.
We are.
Right?
Too much.
My mama used to say you got to keep your head up and keep going. Lean into it.
Colonel Rabb, thank you for calling in.
Right.
I always love your voice because, like you, I'm a veteran, and I am amazed on the one hand that you and I and others have invested our blood, our life, our faith, and we expect a return on that investment. But I fear that there are those among us who devalue our humanity and feel a sense of privilege that for them it makes it okay to marginalize or cancel our lives, our livelihoods, our future for some mistaken notion of what America is. But what are your thoughts as you listen to the news these days? What thoughts are in your mind? And thank you for calling in.
When I think of what's going on, what pops in my head is music, from way back, like a ball of confusion right now. That's, I believe, what we're going through. It's just a lot of confusion. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Perfectly. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So the thought of, we're going to what the music was during the days of the civil rights, right? And that music it was good because it gives us a vision in terms of what we are going through.
Take a minute, if you would. Just want to give you props, Colonel Rabb, and talk about your service to our community and to our country in the area of mental health as a leader and as a commander in the Army, stationed both in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yeah. It's a sad thing to say and also to live. It's like, we fight because we want things to be better, and we thought that things would be better. But the way I'm feeling these days is very pessimistic because of the amount of antagonism that we are getting and seeing in the political realm of our life. I didn't expect that. Maybe I was naive. I thought things were going to get better, and it seems to me that things are getting worse. And we need to fight, and we need to fight for our survival. That's what it's coming down to. It's coming down to our kids. I know, Brenda, I know your heart is there. Because when you speak towards, this loving kindness and you speak for the kids that you direct our thoughts there. And I appreciate that, because
I'm teary right now. I really am. I'm hurting for them, Colonel Rabb. And I'm hurting for our Black kids because they were behind before COVID. In New Mexico, this is the year of literacy. And I've been trying to work with a couple publishers where we can get free books for the kids for the summer, and they do have programs because I was waiting for someone to get a hold of Al from the Secretary of Education's office to say, what are you doing for the kids for the summer? Do you have a listing of activities that are in safe areas? And I'm an outsider. We have 15 different programs in a small town. I think it's only 3 million here. It's 3 million between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. But they made for sure. Now, they're not North Minneapolis children. Some of them are from very wealthy areas, but they made for sure that those kids were productive, having fun, exercising. It was all mapped out. I remember I call him my mentor, but he's a millennium. And I remember asking Sean Lewis, I said, we need to have a blueprint. And so he said, Brenda, who's going to do the blueprint? And I said, well, we need the mayor and the city council and, to say, well, in this particular area, we're going to have this type of camp. Dr. Irma listed, I bet you 15 different things on the show one time about all of the things that kids could be doing. Well, no one's standing and putting this blueprint. I remember one guest said, we have all of these nonprofits doing nothing. Well, I don't know anything about that. But if all of those nonprofits came together and had a plan to address these kids this summer. I haven't heard a whole lot about shootings, which is good because it seems like every time we tune into a show, another child was hurt. So it's been really good not to hear it. I don't know if it's happening.
But it's still going on. There's still a great question. Let me bring another voice into the conversation. One of my friends and colleagues here in Twin Cities is Sister Artiste Mayfield. And I asked her to come on today to talk about a project she's doing that's consistent with what we're talking about. And that is civic engagement, voter engagement. She's, through her organization called Grassroots in Action, presenting a community dialogue. It's kind of a debate. Why should we vote for you is the name of this Grassroots in Action presentation. It's going to be Saturday, June 25th at the Urban Research Outreach and Engagement Center, UROC, in North Minneapolis at 2001 Plymouth Avenue. And she's invited candidates for Hennepin County Sheriff and Hennepin County Attorney to come and talk to the community. And Artiste, good afternoon. Good to see you. How you doing? Thank you for being here. Let me unmute you. You have to unmute. And I see we're also joined now in a minute by Representative Esther Akbar, who represents North Minneapolis. But Artiste, let me greet you first of all. Unmute there if you would. There we go. We hear you now.
Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you.
So, Grassroots in Action Inc., we stand for education, mobilization, and voter registration. Hey, Esther. And we do education forums and we do candidate forums, right? And so this month it's going to be a candidate forum. We want candidates that are running against each other. It could be Democrat, it can be Republican, it can be independent. We want them to tell us, what are you going to do and what are you going to change in our community? You know, even though we ask the questions, you know, everybody wants to give a good answer, you know, but as we're looking on, we begin to, if the people begin to really pay attention and ask the questions a little harder and a little stronger, people will begin to slip and dip. So, you know, we want to hear more than just you talking. Like, show us some evidence, show us something that we can stand on so that we can believe that these things are going to happen. We hear this all the time, and then things change for us, you know. And so when they come together, like we got the sheriff running, we got somebody running for Mike Freeman's spot. What is going to be did different? Freeman been in there a long time, you know, and we still getting
County attorney. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, county attorney. We're still getting the same results in North Minneapolis. The sheriff's been in there for a minute. He made, you know, people make us promises and people don't fall through. We want to try to make sure everybody falls through with what they're saying, because we're going to hold you accountable for it. We want you to be held accountable. You said like it was somebody that was running again, and we would come to the question, well, you said last time that you was going to do this. We still haven't saw the results of what you said you was going to do last time. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the 25th.
Artiste, I'm so glad you're doing that, and so glad you could join us today, because I think what you represent is the ability to mobilize. Your name is appropriate, mobilize grassroots in action. And too often we in community and politicians tend to ignore, you know, the ordinary people in the neighborhoods. And that is to the disadvantage of the neighborhood and to the disadvantage of the community. A lot of great ideas, and certainly there is value in every human being that makes up community. And we have to have processes and systems that recognize that and speak to the value that we all bring. And your organization in particular, I think, stands for leveling the playing field and ensuring that people who may not have been accorded a voice get a voice. You got a friend sitting next to you. I met her on the phone a few days ago. I want to take a quick minute just to get a story from her that's disturbing, but that we'll come back and talk in more detail about in another show. Darlene Roy is there. Darlene Roy, let me first of all, once again, express my condolences for your loss. And you are raising some critical, serious questions about the system of healthcare that resulted in the loss of your husband. Got about 3 to 5 minutes, so I just want to give you a minute to summarize what's happening in your life. We're going to come back and visit that entire process in depth at another show. But good afternoon, and thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. My situation started on May the 18th. My husband hadn't been feeling well on the 17th. He came home early from work. He went to the clinic for a doctor's appointment on the 18th at 5 p.m. When he went for that doctor's visit, they did a blood sugar test on him. We did not know, I did not know, until about 2 a.m. that night going into Thursday morning, that his blood sugar level was 549. I didn't even know what 549 meant. I soon found out. My husband walked into that emergency room that night at 2 a.m. He passed away on May the 24th as a direct result of not being cared for or treated when he went to the clinic. We didn't know anything about him being a diabetic. The first diagnosis of him being diabetic was that day. And I was like, how can you be diabetic in one day? I don't know all the symptoms and causes of what diabetes is or what it does. After the fact, I'm well educated on this now. And my fight here now is to say that as far as our community goes, the racial disparities, the racial disparities in the healthcare system. How do y'all let him walk out at 5:49? He should immediately been placed into an ambulance and sent to the emergency room. The 8 hours that Roy spent at home could have saved his life. He had a stroke Thursday morning on the 19th at 5 a.m. He suffered he had a seizure at 5 a.m. on the 19th, had a seizure at 5 a.m. on the 19th. He suffered 4 strokes on his brain, left, right, front, and back. They placed him on the ventilator. All of this happened from that Thursday morning till we made the decision for the ventilator because he was clinically brain dead by Tuesday morning on the 24th. We turned the ventilator off at 8:30. He passed away at 8:45 a.m. It is my duty and it is my mission to say, why do we have to suffer like this? Who else would y'all let walk out the doctor's office? Who else before Roy and who else after Roy? It's my mission to bring this material to the community and to the people, and just for us to be aware as people, as family, husband, wives, loved ones. You want to know what's going on in your life. This has woke up and shook up so many different things in my life. Just even putting together the obituary was like an unreal moment for me. I still sometimes can't even believe this, but I am going to be on the path of trying to bring awareness to the community. Right now, working with Miss Artiste Mayfield here to try to put together a diabetic event. Hopefully by the end of July, we're working on the details now and hoping that we could reach out to the community and y'all will come out and support us on this matter. And it's so good to meet you, Mr. McFarlane. My last name is Phillips as well. But I will be in touch with you so we could go over more things. I do have other stuff in play right now. I'm working with a team of lawyers to try to figure out what is going on because this not right.
Well, sister, I want to, number one, again, express my sincerest condolences for you and your family and for the loss that you have experienced. And I want to express my anger at the system that we have allowed to fail you, that we believe fails so many of us. And I think we owe it to ourselves. And I think that you have properly established and declared the mission of examining the system, the process that puts our people at risk for loss of life and limb through just whatever it is. But listen, we're going to have you come back. I'm going to work with you to make sure that your voice and the voices of those who are experiencing disenfranchisement, disconnection, get connected and get brought forth for the benefit of all of us and for our society. Thank you so much. Artiste, thank you so much for being there. And we'll keep promoting the event. It's going to be Saturday, June 25th, 2022, 12:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. at UROC, the university campus right in North Minneapolis, Plymouth Avenue, 2001 Plymouth Avenue North. And the event is called Grassroots in Action Presents Why Should We Vote for You? A community dialogue hosted by Artiste Mayfield, and it's going to feature candidates for Hennepin County Sheriff and candidates for Hennepin County Attorney. We'll have you back between now and then and talk more about it, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you. Let me
give me a call.
Okay, let me pivot now.
For sure. Thank you, Artiste.
Bring in State Representative Esther Akbar. Esther, thank you for being here. How you doing, first of all?
I am all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay, but like I said, I'm shocked by
Mhm.
that testimony, that comment from Darlene, and I'm saddened for her loss. But we have an obligation and a duty to create community that works for us. So it's hard to segue, but I think we
Yeah.
have to. I wanted to have you just come in and talk about what's on your mind as you reflect on what happened or didn't happen at the closing session of the state legislature, and what things you're doing over the summer to keep people tuned in and activated, civically involved. So, kind of, what's kind of on your mind right now, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Well, anytime. Yeah, I do think, Miss Phillips' story actually is part of why it was upsetting that we weren't able to get as much done in the legislative session as we wanted to. We had a good deal on a health and human services bill that I think, would have really helped to ensure that we had more funding in our clinical systems and hopefully had more staff. So you never know, maybe if there were more people around, maybe that could have been prevented. But in terms of where we were, one of the things that we did get done was funding for frontline workers. So I think many of you know that during the height of the pandemic, especially in 2020 and 2021, we had so many people who couldn't stay home. Their jobs didn't allow them to do so, or they had jobs that were meant to take care of us, like many of the nurses, doctors, janitors, teachers, bus drivers, people who allowed our society to keep functioning. And so that application actually opened on June 8th, so last week, and it will stay open until July 22nd. It is not a first come, first serve. So whether you applied last week, apply today, apply next week, or apply on July 22nd, you still have an opportunity, if you are eligible, to receive funding from that. So I would encourage many people to apply, especially those who could not work from home and had a job that was public facing. And the
What are the
website.
general categories of jobs that people should?
Yeah, so the general categories are almost anything within the healthcare system, especially if you worked with patients or were in a public facing role. I think some education positions, especially those that engage with students, and other areas, especially in retail or grocery store workers. If you had a public facing job, you had to be in front of multiple people every day, you will likely qualify. The website where people can go to check is, I believe, frontlineworkerpay.mn.gov. And so I'll make sure that, Al, that you have that for the people. But I would really heavily encourage people to apply. I think that it is the least that we can do in the state of Minnesota to say thank you to people who were on the front lines during that time period. So that's something we're proud of. We are, there's still the opportunity for a special session to go back and finish up some of those deals where, conversations are still.
How likely is it? Would you percentage-wise put as the likelihood of that happening?
Well, I don't gamble that often, but
Okay.
I think it's a small chance, but there's always a chance. So, never give up hope. But regardless, whether we have one or not, many of us are ready to come back in January, have bills ready to go, ready to make some deals, and we'll be working hard this summer to make sure that, we're doing a lot of that groundwork so that way more stuff can get passed earlier in the session. Than waiting until the end. So that's some of the stuff we're working on. In terms of general civic engagement, I think as Ms. Artiste said, this is an election year. Some of the more heavily contested races are, our congressional seat has a primary, Hennepin County Sheriff and Hennepin County Attorney. So I really encourage people to, look closely at those races, especially Hennepin County Attorney. That is something we talk a lot about, public safety, and that is a position that can really be a partner in public safety. And so I encourage people to look at all of the candidates and really ask those questions about what people's plans are, what their demeanor is, and how they plan to engage the community in their work. We also will be working to turn out the vote, but we also know that democracy is more than just voting. So we hope to have some town halls coming up this summer, some voter registration drives, and more ways that people can just let us know the issues that they're facing and how we can work together, whether that's, at the state level, working with our counterparts at the county and the city. So that way we're all kind of in this together. One of the things that I've been trying to develop in the 2 years I've been in this role is, deeper relationships with my counterparts at the various levels to be able to actually enact on some of these issues that we're all getting calls about and that we're all facing. And I think that that's going well. And I'm looking forward to this summer and this fall and what we can do collaborating, particularly on, for me, for housing issues. So.
What is the state of the community in your district, North Minneapolis part in particular? What I see, Representative, is a lot of building going on West Broadway. I see energy around the, well, it's not your part, but the northern half of the district with the, what's it called, the waterfront or the
Upper Harbor Terminal.
Upper Harbor Terminal.
Yeah.
But that's going to affect the entirety of North Minneapolis and of the region. And I see a lot of good stuff happening on West Broadway and hopefully on Plymouth Avenue. How's it look to you? What can you point to as things that give you hope and things that you want to keep in a priority, posture before the residents of your district?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that's going to come up pretty soon is the Blue Line extension, right? And so the first set of plans has been proposed to be Broadway Avenue. I've talked to a couple of business owners there. Many are excited about it, but also really concerned about displacement. And I know that they have various working groups that are talking about that, but it's making sure that we have that follow through. And so that is something that I know me and my legislative counterparts are engaged on because, we also help with securing some of that additional funding from the federal government to make sure that that is built in a way that is equitable and that is fair to, especially to a lot of the business owners who are there, because we don't want them to leave. So that's something we'll be looking into. I think, some of the other things that are happening is there are a lot of business owners who are really interested in owning their own buildings. I had a bill this year that would have developed a fund to help small business owners to be able to do that. So that's something I'll keep pushing for, just because we know that a lot of business owners, especially in our communities, don't always get the opportunity and the access to capital to be able to own their own property. So that's something I'll keep working on. And I know that a number of organizations that I've worked with, they are still going to continue to move forward with a lot of their projects, where it's opening entrepreneurship centers, supporting people who want to get into food catering business, supporting opportunities for recreation centers, so that way more young people have safe places to go. So it's things like that that give me hope and that I know are still going to continue moving forward.
What about youth activity? What has happened and what can and should be happening to create spaces that are safe for young people to be and for youth development, youth focus?
Yeah. So, I've been working with some local leaders on developing at least two recreation centers. So we had two funding bills up for that. One would be a strict youth recreation center where young people can come after school, they can play, they can get, they can engage with adults, they can learn about music, they can learn about arts, they can learn about technology. And so that's one that I think would be really great, because I think one of the things that I've heard from a lot of community members is there's not enough places for kids to go. And then especially during the pandemic, so many places like libraries were closed for such a long time. So wanting to have that. There's also a health and wellness center that is in the works of being developed over on Plymouth Avenue. And I think that will be an awesome opportunity once it gets done, because it will allow for more sports activities. It can also be a generator of jobs, especially for high school students who want to work there. And because it can be a regional center where people can come and have competitions. Hopefully that will also spur some economic.
The swimming center? This is the
Yes.
swimming center? Yeah.
Yes.
On Plymouth and
Plymouth and Lindale, I think.
Lindale almost,
So,
yeah.
Lindale almost. But then we also still have the YMCA that's been there and has great programming. And, I've done a couple of events there as well. And I think that, they have swimming lessons and they have opportunities for kids to engage and for people to use their spaces. So I think that's something we need to continue to uplift. North Commons Park is also looking at expanding their resources so they can have more opportunities for young people. And, we applaud those efforts. And so, I think there are things happening. It's slow coming. I know some people feel that, but there are plans in the works. And I know me and my colleagues are committed to making sure that those plans come to fruition.
I see a lot of activity that I would generally frame with the words of environmental awareness and energy consciousness happening in our community. You had several guests on. We're talking about solar and the presence and the opportunity to expand alternative, sustainable energy opportunities in our community, ways that reduce costs, but also create jobs and that are friendly to the environment. I see the process of refocusing the community's perception of itself as not passive when it comes to environment, but active and acting out of self-interest in creating environmental stewardship and accountability. What are your thoughts about that? I'm so happy to see what they're doing down on Plymouth Avenue with the solar, and also at North High School with the solar, and they're selling opportunities for people to buy solar and get paid for being part of a solar power generation grid. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, green energy is coming here. So I am so grateful to many of these community leaders who have been on the ground doing this work for years, and people are now starting to pay attention. I think the outfit on Plymouth Avenue where people can go and get training for how to get into these green jobs is excellent. We know that that's where some good union jobs are. Those jobs come with high wages, benefits, and we want our people to have access to those. So I am in full support. I think North High School is doing an amazing job with the solar panels they have already. They make it pretty easy to get involved and be able to, be on the list of subscribers. And so I think for anyone who is energy conscious and wanting to save a couple of dollars, definitely look into that. And there's still a lot of community groups that are also going around planting trees across North Minneapolis, because one of the things that's also part of environmental justice is so many areas that were historically redlined also don't have trees, which means that their heat index is a lot higher. So on a day like today, which we are expecting heat indexes, upwards of 100 degrees, places that don't have a lot of tree canopy and tree cover are going to be much hotter than other neighborhoods that do. So I think that that's something that we must continue to keep our eye on, to continue to promote. I have a lot of connections to people, so if anyone wants a tree, let me know. I will connect you. So
You got trees. Last
Yeah.
thing for the next couple of minutes here before we close, Representative, you started off by talking about your passion for housing, and housing is both a challenge but also a massive opportunity. What are you saying to your constituents about the housing opportunity for our community?
We have to do more at the legislature. We have to do more. The city has to do more. The federal government has to do more. All of our partners have to do more. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the long and short of it. But and the reason why I say that, and the reason why we know that'll be effective, is because during the pandemic, the federal government did invest in housing. They did invest in keeping people in their homes. They did invest in ensuring that landlords got paid. But now all of those supports are going away. Even Minnesota, that had one of the longest eviction protections up until last year, is also gone away. And what we're seeing now is the rates of eviction are moving much higher than they were pre-pandemic. And so I think that just flies in the face of, a lot of landlords and property owners that say like, oh no, we need to do this. And I think we just need to think differently about what does it actually mean when we say that people deserve a safe and dignified place to live. And I am open to partnering with anybody on this topic to be able to make sure that, prices are much more affordable. They're actually within the budgets of real people. People can get into home ownership if that's what they desire, or they can rent and they don't have to worry about having to move every couple of months or every year because the rent goes up. So there's still a lot we can do. A lot of it is going to require strong investment, both from the state and the feds, but that's the work that I'm committed to doing. And I'm so glad that there are actually a larger number of legislators that are also renters that understand this predicament on a personal level. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to work with them to get more done.
Listen, we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining the program today. I've got about a minute or two. Are there any events that you're going to be at that you want to invite people to? Any hearings, or you're going to be at Juneteenth, or any
Yes.
projects that you're doing? I mean, this is announcement time.
Yeah. No, my team will be at Juneteenth and at Pride, so you'll see us out and about on both weekends. And so if you are interested in getting involved, come to the website, estheragbaje.com, sign up to volunteer, and we'll have emails going out. If you also follow us on social media, all the handles, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, are at go4Esther, and you can find out ways to join us on those weekends as well. So thank you.
Great. Brenda, any questions for Representative Esther Akbaje? Okay.
So good seeing you.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen,
and good luck.
We're out of time. Thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. My thanks to Representative Esther Akbaje, who serves the district that I live in North Minneapolis. Thanks to you, Brenda, as well. And thanks to our previous guest as well. Thanks to Sister Artiste Mayfield and her work. I want to remind you that she's presenting through her organization, Grassroots in Action, on Saturday, June 25th. At 12:30 to 2:30 at Rock on Plymouth Avenue, a community dialogue. It's titled Grassroots in Action, Why Should We Vote for You? And they're having candidates for Hennepin County Sheriff and Hennepin County Attorney talk to the community. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.